to the fact that we fund agri-food research and the need to continue to do so in relation to both agriculture, food, forestry, and to ensure that we use that to build up the human capital, and at the same time develop technologies that will maintain the competitiveness and sustainability of the entire sector. So that's just really to recall the importance that has been attributed to research and innovation, indeed as part of the Foodwise 2025 strategy. Just to say then, or to say that we have, as most of you will know, we talk about 3 research funding programs. So that is in some ways the way in which our funding is attributed, the way in which it is allocated to the department is on 3 separate budget lines, if you like, one for food, one for forestry, and one for agricultural research. But although there are 3 funding streams, essentially we are operating and have been now for a long time, and we're increasingly moving in the direction of a single program, basically with 3 interlinked parts. One dealing with food, which we would see as still the primary program for institutional food research, with a focus on product development, safety, processing, etc., health and nutrition. Then the agriculture side, again, a lot of support for sustainable, competitive agricultural practice and policies, focused on the usual modern plant and animal biosciences, but increasingly also in terms of safety and agri-economics and finance, and then finally forestry, forest policy and sustainable forest management and use of forest products and provision of public goods. So the main point I wanted to make there, and I think hopefully it comes across in the call documentation, in the call specification, and we try to embed that into what we put is the interlinked nature of the 3 programs and the 3 funding streams. And that increasingly, I think, we see research as working in parallel or together in various areas. And certainly there is overlaps between agriculture and food, obviously, but also between, say, for example, agriculture and forestry with respect to climate change and so on. Then I suppose in general, just to recall the objectives of our programs, basically, as you all know, to create a knowledge base and scientific expertise. And we put a stress on certain things. So, for example, collaboration, and you will see repeated references to collaboration, both interdisciplinary and interinstitutional collaboration in our call specification document, and indeed in the instruments that we have out there. We try to incentivize that by encouraging or insisting on a certain degree of minimum collaboration between institutions, between research performing organisations. And the bigger the application becomes, the more that is required in that regard. We would hope that as a consequence of the research that we're funding, that we're adding value, obviously, to the whole research base. We are increasingly also putting a lot of emphasis on as a kind of an offshoot in one sense, but at the same time it's almost in some ways one of the main objectives is to increase the human capital and the expertise and provide training for young researchers in particular, because as we say, I think we say anyway, that our programs are designed largely for the early stage researchers, both students, be they masters and PhD students or postdocs, particularly those up to say 5 or 6 years postdoctorate qualification. So that's just to in general to summarise what our objectives of the programs are. A few things then that are maybe key features of the programs are the public good nature of it. Our funding is goes to institutions and institutional based research for public good research, so that we expect and insist that it is made publicly available, widely available. But of course we do welcome industry, and in one particular instrument, the so-called innovation platform, and that is in one particular topic in the current call, it is exclusively reserved for that particular instrument. There is a requirement for industry to be involved, with the industry to co-fund it. And of course in that situation the requirements with regard to management of IP, etc., and the IP protocol will be key into collaboration, again, as I've already spoken about that, both institution and disciplinary, and incrementally mandatory as product scale grows and cost grows. Responsible research, increasingly we as funders and you as researchers are, I'm sure, aware of the need for and the increasing emphasis on the need for responsible research, be that in relation to ethics, access to data, etc., gender, environment, all kinds of different things with respect to responsible research. And we have signed up to most of the protocols that are in place and national policies with regard to that. And these are emphasised in the documentation. The types of research, I suppose, that we are focusing on, first of all, knowledge for knowledge's sake, if you like, but also knowledge for provide evidence for policy development, to build and maintain human scientific capital with regard to enabling the researchers who emerge as a consequence of these projects, not only to move into academia or research organisations like Chagas, but also for government and indeed increasingly for the benefit of moving into the agri-food industry itself. Secondly, of course, the technological development for technologies that will come yield as a consequence of the research that we fund for practice improvement both on farms and in forests, but also in the food industry. Of course, there is the research that will be of societal benefit, general societal benefit, and there I'm thinking in particular of food safety, and there are a number of topics in the call which are devoted to that, but also with regard to human nutrition, etc. And as you probably know, our focus is largely on the applied and pre-competitive space in other words, the early stage of low technology research levels, or readiness levels. Just a summary then, the process, I suppose, we work off and have at least tried to work off at the very bottom of the state the research agendas, strategic research agendas that have been developed, the so-called SHARP agenda, but also the FORI, the Forest Research Ireland document that was prepared a number of years ago, and indeed Foodwise itself. And we have made use of these, certainly we've made use of the forestry one on this occasion. We've maybe made less use of the SHARP one because it is getting a bit dated now at this stage, but prior to launching the call we also engaged in fairly extensive stakeholder consultation, both internally within the department in relevant line divisions and policy areas, but also externally across primarily the industry and indeed other funders and other research entities that are out there, particularly the big centres, with a view to trying to ensure that whatever we put in the call, whatever we encourage as a consequence of the call, complements what's already going on. And that is the basis on which we come up with the topics that are in the call. And then you see, as you mostly be familiar with, the actual call has been put out there. We have a three-stage screening process leading to a final decision, and Tony will go into more detail on that afterwards. And ultimately, of course, as I said earlier, the benefits of the research that is funded are for policy, for industry, and for consumers and for farmers, for the end users. And we will monitor the progress of these projects once funded over the course of the 3 or 4 years in question 5. Just to recall then some of the context and the policies and the strategies that have been sort of on our minds when we launched this particular call. So we did a mapping exercise, both of our own projects that we have funded in the recent past that are currently ongoing. And as I said earlier, we have done this internal and external stakeholder consultation, and of course have made some use of the strategic research agendas that are there that are referred to earlier. Our call, I suppose, and one of the unique features of the calls that the department operate is for some people would regard as directed calls. Other funders put out a more general call, which is wide open. Ours, as I say, is quite directed. of realising the opportunities and addressing the challenges. So we would have gone into some lengths to try and identify the challenges in particular, but there's also opportunities out there. Including those, and on this particular occasion, I suppose, things that are very much at the top of our minds are things like climate change and the various different challenges and targets and so on that have to be met with regard to that. The bioeconomy, in terms of developing the bioeconomy, which has become more and more important and is now the focus of a lot of attention. And then things like market diversification, particularly in the context against the background of Brexit, and in general resilience and innovation, and things like antimicrobial resistance, the problem that poses. I suppose, and then in general, just the need to direct production and consumption towards a sustainable, climate smart and the sector of bioeconomy. So these are the kind of things that these are called out, and I would encourage you to read the narrative that's in the cause specification document leading up to the actual topic areas, because they do provide some clues as to the kind of big issues that the cause is attempting to focus in on. And I think when you come to write your applications, I think it's important to be mindful of those big issues and to be mindful of the context, the policy context, and the industry context in which, and the challenges that are out there in terms of how you construct your application to deal with those. And I'm not going to go through the detail of these, but you will see reference in the call specification as well to various strategic agendas and strategies that are out there, both national and at the EU level, which have a bearing in some shape or other on the what we have put into the call by way of topic areas. And not all of them are going to be relevant to each and every topic, but depending on what topic you are focusing your application on, I think it would be very wise to take a look at the particular strategy or policy or report that is in existence that has some bearing, some relevance to it, and make sure that in constructing your application that you are paying attention to what is flagged and what is identified in those. And again, on the EU level, it's just a list of some of, it's not a complete list, but it's a list of the most important ones, I suppose, at the level of the EU that is also has bearing on our call. And I think things like multi-actor projects is something that you will be familiar with at the EU level. That's something that we have mentioned in our call as well. The need to ensure that all of the various different stakeholders that have an interest or relevance with respect to whatever application you're putting together are somehow embedded and enclosed in the application. Again, as I said, these are the strategic agendas that have been developed a few years ago. The SHARP ones, which I've already made reference to, and the various different components of that. And again, we have maybe made less use of that on this particular occasion, but nevertheless, I think it's a useful document in terms of setting out the particular issues that arise in the various different pillars that go to take that up. And likewise then in the forestry one, which is a bit newer, it's not as dated, I suppose, and again it has, we have made more use of that on this occasion perhaps than SHARP, and is so worth focusing in on whatever particular pillar that you are trying to address in your application. I'm going to leave it at that, just by way of introduction, I suppose, and I'm going to hand over now to Tony Quinn, who will take you through the various funding instruments and explain a little bit more detail of the nuts and bolts of the application.